Misha here, and it's been a little while since we've done a video on the Czechoslovakian, now Czech Republic, VZ-58. And this has been a very favorite rifle of mine ever since I learned about them 20 years ago. And as I've said in multiple videos, as soon as the D-Technic started to come into the United States, 2006-2007 time period, I picked one up. Really, this is just going to be revisiting, and I thought we would compare one of the nicer Century VZ-2008s with a current production Czechpoint-USA VZ-58. Because, well, honestly, they're both more or less in production. Century has made batches on and off of the VZ-2008 since, well, ostensibly 2008. And Czechpoint has been importing guns since roughly the same time. Originally, these were built in the Czech Republic under the D-Technic brand name. But it's the same company now, just known as Czech Small Arms. They changed their name about 10 years ago. So this is a real import from the original country. And this is a U.S. assembled gun using a parts kit. And these are considerably cheaper than the imports. And I thought we would just, since they're both here and available, kind of talk about what the money gets you. Why not? It's a good excuse to talk about the VZ-58 again. Now, if you want a history, we have a whole video just on that. If you'd like to know the mechanics and how this is not an AK-47, AKM, we have a whole video comparing one of these with Russian AKMs. And we have plenty of range videos besides. And of course, AK Operators Union, Rob Ski, did a 5,000 round test of one of the D-Technic guns, Czechpoint-USA guns, and I'll let you guess who he got that from. And of course, lots of people have done videos on the Century VZ-2008 besides. So okay. Real briefly, what do we have here? Both are chambered for 7.62 by 39. Both now have 16-inch barrels. Both feed from original Czech military 30-round alloy mags. Both have a last round bolt hold open and other features. And both of these here today have the Slim Jim furniture, the bakelite type furniture. And both take standard VZ-58 furniture besides. The Century guns always had a bayonet lug under the front sight base and a removable muzzle device. Most are threaded 14x1 right hand like the military, but some of the Century guns, when they built them early on, were threaded 14x1 left hand, so more Kalashnikov style. The Czech guns, and I've talked quite a bit in other videos about previous imports and different barrels, so we're just going to talk about the current 2019-2020 imports. These two are threaded 14x1 right hand and come with a removable muzzle nut. They also sometimes come with the beer can brake, and now they also have the bayonet lug. So that's all equal. As for the barrels themselves, the Century barrel is US made, 16 1/4 inches long, button rifled, non-chrome lined. I believe these are made by Green Mountain. Century's used several different subcontractors for both parts and assembly on these, so when I say something like that, it doesn't necessarily hold true for all of them. It's just my experience. Please keep that in mind. The Czech gun here also has a 16-inch barrel. They say it's either 16.1 or 16.2. I can't quite remember, but anyway. It is cold hammer forged. It is chrome lined. And these are made in Germany under contract by Walther for Czech Small Arms. When they first started importing these for several years, they used original 14.4-inch military barrels. But when those ran out, D-Technic/CSA said that they made new ones, but then they tested them against barrels made by Walther in Germany, and that they found the German barrels to deliver superior accuracy. So that's where they went with them. That's what they say on their website. So you can believe it or not. I tend to think the company has integrity, but your mileage may vary. As for the receivers, the Century gun is on a US receiver. Now they say this is a milled receiver. Yeah, Century makes their milled receivers by first starting by casting a rough block in the shape of what it needs to be, and then machining it, milling it into its final shape. So while it is a machined receiver, the initial block it's made from isn't just a solid block of steel. It was originally a cast block of steel. Just letting you know. But I will say, getting up close, the lines on this, they did a pretty good job as far as that goes. As for the Czech gun over here, this is a semi-automatic only receiver made in the Czech Republic, but it is made to more or less original specifications. It is a true machined receiver. The newer ones do come in drilled and tapped for a scope rail on the side. Here, this little holes, you can unscrew these if you want. It is worth pointing out that these come in as single stacks to comply with import regulations, and then Czechpoint-USA opens them up to take standard mags, whereas the Century receiver, again for what it's worth, always had double stack. Flipping these over, the Century VZ-2008 is assembled from a used, but usually in quite nice condition, military surplus VZ-58 parts kit. Like I said, this one has a slim gym furniture. They also did some with full wood furniture, and some, actually probably the largest number, with the side folding stock. The way the VZ-58 is designed, the fixed stock and the folder both can be swapped onto the same receiver. It's also worth pointing out the Century has the same style of lever, 3-position, but of course auto doesn't really do anything. So fires in the back, safe is down. And this actually has a relatively heavy trigger pull because it uses both springs, the semi and the full auto. As for the CSA gun, the Czech Small Arms one, this is built from either unissued military parts if they have them on hand. Like for example, this front side assembly is one of the early ones. And also some newly made Czech parts when necessary. For example, the bolt carrier on this one is a modern production. It has a different type of safety. They've modified it now down is still safe. There's no third position in the rear. Where full auto used to be forward, now that's fire and semi. They did this to make it more ergonomic, and I would agree. Generally speaking, it is easier to use when you don't have the three positions. As far as parts on the Century gun, the receiver and the barrel and a couple of the internals, for example, I think the sear and the gas piston, are US made. On the Czechpoint gun, the receiver and barrel are import. And on this one at least, your trigger is US made and your muzzle nut US made. And the floor plate and follower in the mag. Otherwise it's all Czech all the time. Another one to talk about is the finish. The Century guns, and again, this is one of the nicer Centuries. It has their typical Parkerized finish. This one's quite smooth, but they did refinish it, giving it a park job. It's also worth pointing out, you can tell in the US barrel, it has the kind of lathe marks on the barrel. Just something to point out. Whereas the barrel on the Czech gun is quite smooth. And these have more of the original lacquer style finish, be it a deep gray or even semi-gloss black to a lighter, more battleship gray. Even the original Czech military guns, honestly the finish varied a little bit here and there. And they've even done some at Czech Small Arms that have almost like a blued looking finish. You can see the lightning cuts up here on the receiver. Let me get over. Sort of the gloss, you know. Yeah, just looking at the finish here. So, certainly when it comes to being authentic, the Czech gun has the more authentic finish. And while I like Parkerized finish, Century just kind of uses the same thing on all of theirs. As far as build quality, let's just be honest. Czech Republic has a very good reputation for build quality, and Czechpoint-USA seems to maintain pretty high standards themselves. With the Century, again, they used several different subcontractors for the different receivers over time, and they were assembled by different people. Although, in general, the VZ-2008 seems to be one of their better jobs. That said, the reason I choose the VZ-58 is, for one thing, it's an import, and it's really the only official semi-automatic VZ-58 made. The fit and finish is outstanding. It's a very smooth shooter, a very light shooter. And it's as Czech as it can be. The Century gun, while a reliable shooter, always had what's called the gremlin in the trigger. The Czech gun avoids this by having a plate welded on to the bottom of the bolt carrier to prevent this issue. And I'm sure if you're interested exactly in what the gremlin is on the mechanics, you can Google it up. Another issue that I found, and others have too, the Century guns, because of using the US barrel, seem to be over-gassed. The gas port seems to be a little bit larger on these than on the originals. And so they seem to recoil a little more. It's either that or just the harmonics of the American receiver. But either way, people who've shot both almost universally agree that the Czechpoint has much less felt recoil. It's funny, when Jay owned a VZ-2008, he liked the gun, but he ultimately got rid of it because he didn't like the recoil. He just assumed, since these are quite light guns, that it was just the gun, the design. But once he shot an import, a Czech-built one, he noticed that no, it actually felt much more pleasant, and he actually found himself being more accurate with it besides. And also it's worth noting, the Czech gun doesn't have the full auto spring, so it only has the one spring back here for the striker system, so it has a much lighter trigger. They're both actually quite smooth triggers, but the Century one is noticeably heavier on the pull. The bolt on the Century is actually quite smooth, but of course on the Czech gun it's even smoother. And I think a part of the feel there is because of this nice gloss finish on the metal that tends to provide less friction, whereas a parked finish like this, especially if it gets really dry, can put a little friction. Really, it's nothing to be concerned about, but these are finely made machines, and it's just nice when they kind of feel the part. In the past, I said one of the benefits to the Centuries was you got the removable muzzle device and you got a bayonet lug, but with newer Czech imports, now they have both of those features as well. So with that said, I don't really see a reason to get the Century gun unless it's just a matter of economics, and if it is, that is perfectly fine. No shade on that whatsoever. If you can afford the Century and you can't afford a Czech, or if you just can't find the Czech, because while they have imported these for well over 10 years, they have imported them in very small numbers. So sometimes they're just hard to find, especially with the military furniture like this. So if you end up going with the Century, that's fine. And they're a good placeholder. You know, you could always pick one of these up, and then when you find the right Czech gun, pick it up and then sell your Century, and you'll probably make money at it, because at one time these were $400 and now they're going for $800. Not bad. Whereas the Czech guns, they really haven't gone up a whole lot. They have gone up some, but they were always around $1,000, and these days they're $1,200-$1,400, depending on the furniture set. So yeah, they've gone up, but honestly, in 2020, what hasn't? Especially in the 7.62 39 or 5.45 39 world, huh? But yeah, just an update, because we haven't done a VZ-58 video in a while. And I thought I would show one of the current import runs, because I just think this gun is particularly attractive. I like the bakelite that happens to come on this. This is all original military bakelite. And I just, now that they're doing with the bayonet lug, and this is kind of my ultimate VZ-58 right here. If I didn't already own two, I would be keeping it. But this Century, it also just recently came in this week. I haven't had a nice Century in a while. And I will say, yeah, for a Century VZ-2008, this is a very nice example. We have the beer can muzzle brake, which is original. This one has nice furniture. Sometimes the furniture on the Century guns can be a little dinged up. And the lightning cuts are well done on the receiver. The park is smooth. Edges are a little different on the Czech receiver, but yeah, to be expected. And again, bolt travel and all that is just fine. If you'd like to see more of a range report and stuff, check out the playlist, because we've done quite a few videos. These guns definitely have gone the distance. They were standard service rifle in Czechoslovakia and later Czech Republic and Slovakia for half a century. They were also exported to many nations around the world, including Cuba and Vietnam and throughout South America and Africa to some extent too. It is a really neat alternative to the AKM. In fact, the Czechoslovakians were the only ones to make their own design under the Warsaw Pact firing 7.62-39. Everyone else built some kind of Kalashnikov. And this really isn't. It's totally different. It doesn't use a hammer like an AK. It's a striker-fired gun. It doesn't use a rotating bolt like an AK. It actually uses a falling wedge. More like a P-38, honestly. It has a totally open-topped design that can be topped off by stripper clips. It has a last round bolt hold open. Automatic. It uses its own magazines that are made of a nice alloy material. Saving on weight. The whole gun's designed to save on weight, even though it is a milled receiver. A milled VZ-58 is actually lighter than a stamped AKM and is significantly lighter, almost a kilogram, than a milled AK Type 3. Even the gas systems are different. The AK is a long stroke gas piston. The VZ-58 is a short stroke gas piston, more like an FAL or SKS or any myriad others. Heck, these are even threaded on the barrel different. While they're both 14mm, this is right hand, and the AK is left hand. And the bayonet lug is wildly different. In fact, this is the lug that Finland kind of was inspired by when designing their Valmet bayonet lug. And the bayonet it takes is not dissimilar to a Finnish puukko. Even the sling is not a standard, AK type sling. Alright, that wasn't anything important, just a lampshade. It's this leather tab on the end that uses this big ring. I call these keychain rings. The furniture's totally different. Controls are different. Very nice guns. People ask about how they are like an AK. The thing is, there's nothing AK about these except they just happen to fire the same cartridge. 7.62-39 M43, also known as Soviet. So yeah, if you'd like to know more, check that out. But yeah, just not having done much lately, figured why not, and both rifles were available. So with that, I'll let you go. We definitely appreciate you tuning in. If you have any questions about the VZ-58, please drop them below, and Jay and I both own these, so if we can help, we will, and if we can't, we'll try to help you get some help. With that, if you could, like, share, and subscribe, and if you'd like to help support the channel, please check out the link to our Patreon page. This is Misha, and we will catch you very soon next time.